we will kind of. No, we don't have that sound, unfortunately. But yeah, she pretty much tried to answer that and pretty much defend the idea that that would make any sense. So yeah, the current fight though is between some Democrats who want to restrict any individual who makes $50,000 from getting a full stimulus check, and other Democrats who want to maintain the $75,000 threshold from earlier bills, which probably I think could be raised a little bit higher. But the point is, when the $600 check was given out, when the $1,200 check was given out in March, the threshold for who could get it was $75,000 or below, and people are counting on that because they got in the last two, and why would they not be able to get the last or the most recent one? So now they're lowering that even further. So people who under Trump got $1,800 in total stimulus checks, direct checks from the government, would now not be getting that. And it's often very, very important for people who are, because there's a lot of people under that income line who are just being completely cut out of checks. And it just seems like an incredibly, incredibly dumb move. I don't even know what audience that could possibly be appealing to. And there's really no evidence that anyone in America cares about targeting, and they plenty of evidence they definitely care about getting that damn check in the mail ASAP. And I really don't think also, James, this may be controversial to say, they don't care too much about bipartisanship either. If there's Republican votes or if there's Democratic votes, it makes no difference as long as they end up getting money to feed their families and put food on the table.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think the main problem that is going to come out of this bill, even though they did pass a major hurdle actually the other day, which is good news, is the filibuster. Ted Cruz has said that he will gladly stay on the floor for 24 hours, then switch spots with, I believe it was Josh Hawley, who he was going to make a partnership with. So, I mean, look, I don't necessarily think bipartisanship is a necessity, but at the same time, with the 50-50 Senate and the stupid 60 vote rule, which honestly, talk about the nuclear option, Chuck Schumer hypothetically should get rid of that for bills and getting out of filibuster instead of doing a 60 vote to get out of filibuster.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be necessary sooner rather than later.
I mean, you're not going to get anything done
because you can't go through.
Get 10.
You cannot go through budget reconciliation for anything or for everything.
No. The most Republican senators I could see the Democrats getting is maybe like one or two. I mean, Susan Collins is probably going to go over a lot, and Lisa Murkowski once in a blue room. Now, Mitt Romney probably is going to be a surprise, but
yeah, actually, Mitt Romney had a very interesting bill.
Yeah, he did.
Assuming do the
$3,000, I think it was for childcare.
Yeah, that was a pretty interesting bill there that he would put out.
Was.
Of all things, and it's actually more to the right more to the left than a lot of the Democratic Party now. So like, this just absolutely makes no sense here. On Sunday, so we had Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She threw a new number in the ring, saying she thought cutting the full stimulus threshold off at $60,000. So again, leaving off $15,000 worth of difference there. In terms of earnings will be a good idea. And this is, again, from the woman who, as I praised her for, like, a week ago or something, was like, it's better to go big than, we got to go big here. We can't afford to go small. She said that. I was pretty optimistic, but then what do we see? This BS about cutting it off further. And maybe, this is just such a crazy idea, but maybe since you're supposed to be the better party than the Republicans, maybe you can raise the threshold to expand more people, because if you raise it up to like $80,000 or $90,000, you're not going to be giving that money to rich people. I'm sorry, you're just not. You're maybe giving it to people who are maybe in the middle class, but I think that in terms of it's not the worst thing you can do in terms of actually stimulating the economy. Like, that is trickle down, or I don't know, technically not trickle down, but like that's the kind of economics that works in terms of giving people money who need to spend it. So Psaki was asked what she thought about the $60,000 idea, and offered a new preview into Biden's thinking, saying whatever the threshold is, there will be a scale up. So his view is that a nurse, a teacher, a firefighter who's making $60,000 shouldn't be left without any support or relief either. It's just a question of where the scale up looks like, what it looks like in the final package. Note the emphasis on any relief rather than the full amount of relief that months of political rhetoric has primed people to expect. So again, this could be maybe a $60,000. You have to go to the office, you got to sign up to get a credit to possibly get maybe I don't know, $200 in the end, like something ridiculous like that. Because it's going to be mean tested. It's going to be made like because of the Democrats. They just love doing this. They make it intentionally more complicated, intentionally more confusing, just because they play this kind of like imaginary audience of people who are like, oh, you need to do more austerity, you need to do more kind of like budgetary politics. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. Can you help me explain it? I mean, because I'm just lost on this.
Yeah, I mean, I just couldn't. There are things that the Democratic Party does that make absolutely no sense to me. And the one thing that I've definitely been able to notice throughout this entire talk in regards to the stimulus is that the power of corruption and corporations and big money and overall the rhetoric that the Republicans like to spew a lot, which is that, oh, we shouldn't give it out because of debt, this and that. Look, the fact of the matter is, the one thing that the Democrats really have to do, and this is really why I say nowadays that I don't know what the future for America looks like with the two-party system. And this is a whole other discussion we should probably actually get into one day about why America should make more parties like pretty much every other nation has.
100%, yeah.
Getting back to the point here is, I think the Democrats continuously do this to themselves. When they have power, they screw themselves over. And look, I'm going to say, I'm not going to put the horse before the carriage here. The carriage before the horse here. But what I will say is that the Democrats are doing a little bit better than 2009. But at the same time, this whole stimulus talk, while it's very upsetting to see the income threshold, well, one thing I will say that the Democrats, it seems, have been able to do. There are progressive Democrats, that is, because not all Democrats should be taking credit for this.
I think like Pramila Jayapal, just to add in,
yes,
like has been very, very good in terms of like
I think Ayanna Pressley as well.
Yeah, in terms of like leading in the Congressional Progressive Caucus to go to the White House and be like, this makes absolutely no sense. Because I think like what they learned on from 2009 is like, stop with all the incessant attempts at bipartisanship. Like, it's not going to work. Like, they are not there to play nice. Like, they politically benefit from never, ever, ever working with Republicans. Or, sorry, with Democrats. Republicans do. So,
and also, in 2008, Democrats had, I think, 59 seats in the U.S. Senate, and they had, like, 250, like, something House seats. Like, that is, like, not, like, the fact that the Democrats are doing like, I'm going to be honest, the fact that the Democrats are doing partisan proposals right now and are still getting them through with the slimmest margins that we've seen for over 20 years shows that the Democrats could have gotten a lot of things done 10 years ago.
Yeah, they could have completely changed like the trajectory of the
healthcare.
Yeah,
I mean, they should healthcare.
Like they could have done.
But it was Joe. I mean, they always play Joe. Excuse me. They always. I didn't mean to say. Excuse me. I said Blay. They always blame Joe Lieberman. Yeah. That was one vote. I mean, they had 59 votes for the public option. Now, well, yeah, Joe Lieberman is a dipshit who's basically a Republican at this point. That's not an excuse to drop it off because of one, MFer who decided not to vote for it. What you do at that point is you can just entice, like he wanted something in regards to, I think giving like a rebate out for people to get private insurance. Well, yeah, I hate that idea. The fact of the matter is, technically the public option would actually overdo that. And instead they dropped it off and they tried to entice Joe Lieberman, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski. They don't need those 3 votes.
Yeah,
they needed Joe Lieberman.
Yeah, they only it's like that was just an absolute like politically. They've toned that level of just political stupidity down a little bit, but they still have not lost the kind of deficit hawkery that is so prevalent in the party. Like no matter how hard they try, yeah. So as long as the hypothetical nurse here gets just a little bit of money from the stimulus, even if it's not nearly what they were promised, the system has worked and everyone's going to go home happy. That's what Jen Psaki is saying. So then there was a separate answer to a separate question and answer the reporter asked here. So the question is, back on the subject of stimulus checks, Bernie Sanders said it would be absurd to lower income thresholds, and some other Democrats have raised the prospect that doing so could lead to political backlash, given voters in Georgia were explicitly promised this aid by the president, and they didn't have reason to believe that fewer people would qualify for that aid under the Democrats' plan. And it makes no sense that they would, because pretty much what Bernie Sanders was saying there so rightfully and like makes a pretty good point is like, how in the world are Democrats saying that they want to, after just calling Trump bad for 4 years straight, now they're going to give people less money than he did? Like, really? That's absurd. So he was saying, so pretty much the question was there from the reporter, how would you guys address this criticism? How would you guys address the criticism of you are not doing enough? So what the president proposed, is Saki's answer here, the president proposed the 1,400 checks to make plus 600, which is, of course, 2,000, because he felt it was important and vital to get the direct relief to as many Americans as possible and to target the relief to the Americans who need the help most. Like, my brain is salad at this point. That's how his original plan and proposal were designed. He's also said, and I've said many times from here, that the final plan will look different from what the plan he proposed in his joint session address. It's still working its way through Congress, and I don't think a conclusion has been made yet on the exact level of targeting. And when it does, we're happy to have a conversation about that. But part of this opportunity for members of both parties and members who are across the political spectrum, of course, even in the Democratic Party, to weigh in on what the path forward should look like. So yeah, pretty much saying we haven't decided yet. We're not sure. And Joe Biden also wants to do this thing and also wants to do the complete opposite, like in the exact same way. And we're supposed to take what from that? I have no idea. Like nothing is what we're supposed to take from that. That's the point, I think. Yeah, so the voters who flipped the Senate Democrats, Senate for Democrats were explicitly promised this aid by the president. Wouldn't it be politically bad to tell them that some of them won't be getting any more? And it's pretty much should be the end of the discussion right there. But yeah, it really is. Again, as of a few days ago, is very much a live ball. The White House response being roughly, we'll see what happens, is not very good. So, Ron Wyden, chair of the Senate Finance Committee, had this to say about the stimulus bill. Tax filing season starts February 12th. By filing your taxes earlier, ensure your next relief payment will be based on your most recent income, which kind of is a little weird considering, like, they should just figure that out anyway. If you lost wages in 2020 as a result of the pandemic, file your taxes ASAP to make sure you get the help you need. So what Wyden is saying here is that because eligibility for stimulus checks will be based on 2019 tax data, unless the government gets updated numbers before the checks go out, it's incumbent on us, the American public, and people who have been going through hell, especially for the last year, to file their taxes really quickly. Like, imagine any assumption that under any political party, the government may want to actually do more for someone. Like, that is the just, like, fantasy of all fantasies, I think, James. Like, it was pretty foolish to me.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. I mean, because you look at it in every other country. I mean, I was looking at it today. I mean, Japan, 74% of your yearly salary, if you were unemployed, the government will pay for it. England, which
80%.
Stunned me because, yeah, we both know the political party that runs them, they ain't any type of liberal party. They're the conservative party. I mean, they're not, far right or anything like that. They're probably more like, they try to make themselves look like centrist, tilt to the right. I think on many issues, they're very conservative. I think on some issues, they're kind of centered down the line, if that makes any possible sense whatsoever. I mean, look, I think America is showing the entire world, and the Democratic Party, for that matter, they just show people how we're the wealthiest nation on the earth, but we can't give money to our citizens, or we have to make more roadblocks, throw the cans in the road, get the banana peels ready to get the checks to people. And it's absurd. I mean, because where did I see these banana peels getting thrown when they had the Trump tax cut bill, which gave billions, I mean, going to add up into trillions, by now, definitely 3 years after, of corporate handouts to corporations. Okay, there was no talk whatsoever about the deficit under Trump, even though he basically drove the deficit up into the trillions of dollars. 1.4 trillion to be exact. Now the Republicans are all worried about it, and the fact of the matter is, it is incredible the two-sided nature of the